Even though Lies of P Overture is just a DLC for a game, it has been one of the most fun experiences I had gaming this year. As I suspected, this DLC answered a lot of questions left from the main game, but by far, the question I wanted to see addressed the most was the mystery of the legendary Stalker, a character in the base game who just gets a passing reference. In DLC, we learned so much about her. For example, we learned that she was Carlo and Romeo's teacher, and together they formed a vigilante-esque group of stalkers. We also learned that, like many people in Krat, she too suffered from the petrification disease. And best of all, we got to see how her story came to an end. But did we really? At the end of Lies of P Overture, the legendary Stalker and the puppet of Geppetto are successful in defeating Arlecchino, the serial killer puppet who had kidnapped and tortured Romeo. After this epic fight, the puppet of Geppetto vanishes and reappears in the present timeline, while Leah is left alone in the past to succumb to the petrification disease. That is, until someone we know makes an appearance. Here we see Geppetto dragging the infamous box that contains the nameless puppet. So it's heavily implied that the legendary Stalker simply accepted her fate and died at the hands of the nameless puppet, especially after she gifted her sword to the puppet of Geppetto, which left her defenseless. But this is the legendary Stalker who we're talking about. Many fans, including myself, believe that Leah didn't go out without a fight, and in fact, she might have even survived. Well, kinda. The first thing to keep in mind is Leah's resolve throughout this story. Despite being in the later stages of the petrification disease, she pressed on to rescue her apprentice. There is no way that after she finally rescued him, she would have thrown the towel and left Geppetto to do whatever he wanted with Romeo. Most likely, she put up a fight just like she had done with Arlecchino. And this is something we actually have evidence for. If we return to this spot after the game ends, we find Geppetto's monocle sitting in a puddle of blood. To me, it just seems odd that after the nameless puppet killed Leah, Geppetto would have simply thrown away his monocle. No, that doesn't make any sense. These types of games thrive on environmental storytelling. The fact that we find his monocle sitting in a puddle of blood should tell us that Leah actually got close enough to punch Geppetto in the face. Which is cool for many reasons. For one thing, Geppetto 100% deserves it, okay? But it also means that Leah was able to fight off the nameless puppet without using a weapon, a feat I couldn't even imagine pulling off. But this brings me to my next point. Leah is the legendary Stalker. Why would someone like Geppetto let her ergo go to waste? Remember, the reason Geppetto's here to begin with is because he needs Romeo's ergo to make the king of puppets. Romeo is a pretty good stalker, but when it comes to raw skills, he has nothing against his teacher. Are you telling me that Geppetto took a look at Leah's ergo and said, no thanks? There is absolutely no way Geppetto did that. The man is way too smart to let such raw skill go to waste. Most likely he took her ergo and made a puppet out of her just like he did with Romeo. A puppet that we're most likely going to see in future games of the series. And this is once again something we have evidence for. Once we find a way into the Relic of Trismegisto in the base game, Gemini mentions something very interesting.
Is this the Relic of Trismegistus? You know, it's the strangest feeling. I think I've been here before. Maybe I haven't gotten all my memories back after all. I don't know exactly what's going on, but someone was dragged away from here.
Before the DLC, this line made absolutely no sense. Because Gemini doesn't have a body, he doesn't need to be dragged anywhere, he can simply be carried. But after Lies of P Overture, this line makes perfect sense. The person Gemini is referring to isn't necessarily himself, he is instead talking about Leah being dragged out of the Relic of Trismegistus. Gemini remembers this because he was on Leah's hip while this was happening. But it gets even better because we know where this trail of blood ends. The trail of blood ends in Geppetto's workshop train, a place he used to make puppets after the workshop tower had collapsed. And it is here where I think Geppetto took Leah's ergo to make a one-of-a-kind puppet, one we will see in future installments of the series. I am almost certain this will be the case. However, the one thing I'm not very sure about is the reason why Geppetto would want to make this puppet to begin with. Sure, it's a bad idea to let such a special ergo go to waste, but that alone isn't a good enough reason to create a puppet, especially after puppets are known to have awakened egos. This is actually something that happened to the other puppet Geppetto created using someone's ergo, which ultimately was a crucial event in uncovering Geppetto's evil plan.
Carlo, I hope you can hear me. The laws of the Grand Covenant bind us. We're his puppets. First law. All puppets must obey their creator's commands. Law 0. The creator's name is Geppetto. keeps at bay Geppetto.
This was only Romeo's ego being awakened. Can you imagine what Leah's ego would do if it were to be awakened? Well, we've already got a taste of that while she was still a human. So if Geppetto were to use her ergo to make a puppet, it would have to be for a very good reason. But what exactly would that be? The only thing that comes to mind is Dorothy, the biggest mystery left unanswered in the Lies of P universe. At the moment, it's not very clear what the role of Dorothy will be in the sequel, but what we do know is that she will be very important. This is most obvious in the after credits scene of the base game.
Noted. And we'll have to get his arm back anyway.
I'm counting on it. Expect another report at the next meeting. Paracelsus returning. Ah, and when I return, I will find her. For sure. Another key of ours. Dorothy.
Based on the conversation between Paracelsus and the mystery woman, we can deduce that Dorothy has the same level of importance as the Arm of God. You know, the thing that Simon Manus used to open a portal to the higher plane of existence. We can also find a letter written by Paracelsus in Lies of P Overture, where he mentions that he's looking for someone. This is most likely Dorothy. So whoever or whatever Dorothy is, one thing is for sure. She is very important to the Order. So I wonder if Geppetto's also aware of her importance. Remember, Geppetto isn't just your typical workshop engineer. He is the head of the workshop union, someone who had a very close relationship with the alchemist. So it's not too insane to think that he was also aware of Dorothy. And if he was, it would make sense for him to make the most powerful puppet using the ergo of the legendary Stalker. A puppet capable of capturing and even killing Dorothy. I like this theory, but it does need more evidence. Maybe something will come out of it when future games of this series release. But definitely let me know what you think about it in the comments section below. Do you think Geppetto will make a puppet using Leah's ergo? If so, what do you think he needs that puppet for? Whatever your thoughts and theories are, make sure to leave them in the comments section below. Now, as always, I want to give a big thanks to all of my Patreon and YouTube members for supporting the channel monthly. I would also like to thank all of you who like and share my videos. And with that said, thanks for watching. And remember, go forth in the name of Olympus.